Okay, for meeting 3 and beyond, the format is going to be really exactly the same. So here's what's going to happen at meeting 3 and beyond. First, you need to continue to lead off with something positive. What's going good in your life? What are you excited about right now? And then you just need to follow up on their weekly goal. You can ask them, how did it go? What were your successes? What were your failures? What are the struggles or obstacles that are getting between you and completing your goal? And then ask them, how can they overcome those struggles? Um, you need to also make sure that they memorize their passage. Ask them if they memorized it. If you want to ask them to recite it, they may just volunteer to recite it themselves. That's up to you. Um, and then after you've gone through that sort of accountability, did you do what you said you were going to do? Did you memorize your power passage? Then you can ask them the same question that you asked last week with the purpose of getting another weekly goal. And that is, what do you sense God wants you to do between now and the next time we meet? Again, you need to write this down or put it in your phone. Do something to let them know that you're keeping up with it and you're going to ask them about it the next week. And then finally, you need to end with a prayer. And it would be good to just let them know that not only are you praying for this now, but that you're praying for them every day and that you're praying that God can help them to achieve the goals and achieve the change that they want to have in their life. Now, eventually, time is going to pass and they're going to meet that goal that they had for themselves, not just the weekly goal, but the big monthly goal. And at that point, uh, you can continue the relationship and look for the next goal that you have in mind for them. Um, we haven't really talked about beginning and end for this sort of time period, but it would be good for you to meet with that person for 2 months. Whether that means you accomplish one big goal or two big goals, it's up to you. And then at the end of the 2 months, we can take a break, stand back for a little while, see how it went, and we can also look for other teenagers who'd be interested in the opportunity. We can continue to work our way through the teens and help them all to make good changes and not only to make good changes when you're with them, walking side by side with them, but also to learn how to make changes in their own lives and how to commit to small goals that will result in big goals. This is going to help them not just in their spiritual life, but in everyday life, in their professional life one day. So you're doing a good work. Before I finish out this 3 video series, I wanted to just give you some general tips about coaching, about mentoring. These are just some little nuggets to have in the back of your mind. First of all, um, one of the principles of mentoring and coaching is that you need to be a good listener. You need to be able to ask good, open-ended questions. Um, a closed question would be one that they can answer with a yes or a no. Those are the questions that you want to avoid because you want them to open up and talk more and share more of themselves. So you want to ask questions that will allow them to expand on what they're saying. For instance, if they had a goal and they had a struggle with their goal, it would be bad to say, well, do you think you need to try to do this? Because then they can say yes. But a better question would be, what do you think you need to do to overcome that goal? Or why do you think that that struggle is getting in between you and being who you want to be? Those are questions that can't be answered with a simple yes or no. The second big piece to being a good mentor is you don't want to give advice. It can be tempting because you've been where they are and you know what it's like to be them. You've been in high school before and you've had those struggles that they have back when you were their age. And it's easy for us to just want to give advice and tell them what they should do. But that in the long run limits them and their potential, and it makes you the person that's really in charge of their lives and their spiritual walk. And you don't want that. You want them to take control and you want them to come up with their own solutions. And usually that's the way it happens. About 70 or 80% of the time, if you just continue to ask questions and what do you think you should do and summarize what they're saying and then repeat it back to them and just continue to dig deeper and ask them to figure out their problems. About 70 or 80% of the time, they'll figure out their problem without any help from you. And that's really the goal that you're trying to get. Um, With that being said, the good thing about being a mentor is you don't have to have any kind of answers. You don't have to be the expert. You just have to be the person that kind of walks alongside them and helps them to figure out their own answers. After all, you're not asking them, you know, what do you think God wants me to tell you to do? You're asking, what do you sense God wants you to do? So you're really putting the ball in their court. And then the final thing, and I think this is a really important one, is that you need to be able to celebrate any victory at all that you have with your mentoree. If it's a big thing that they accomplish, that's great. But even if maybe they failed to meet their weekly goal, going back to that prayer illustration, they said their weekly goal was to pray 5 minutes every day, and they come back and they say, that's a bigger step than I thought, and even though it sounds really easy, I was only able to do it 3 out of the 7 days or 4 out of the 7 days. Yes, you need to say, okay, well let's go back and let's repeat that goal and try to hit it this week. But you also need to celebrate that as a big victory. Um, try not to try not to let them get their expectations too high that they're going to turn into Jesus overnight. It's going to take time and it's a process, and they do need to be moving forward, but you as their mentor and their sort of encourager, you need to help them to see that any improvement at all is improvement, and any step in the right direction is obedience, even though it may not be as radical a change as they were hoping for. My mentor is Phil Jackson, not of the Lakers, but he's just a good old guy in town that works for Mission Resource Network. And he sort of taught me that through our mentoring process. I had a lot of big goals and things were not going as fast as I wanted them to, but he helped me to see that even though all my plans weren't going exactly on the timeline that I had wanted or imagined, he helped me to see that, change was happening and things were moving. And he used the phrase, it's not in neutral anymore, you're in gear. And that was encouraging to me, and it can be encouraging for the person that you're mentoring. So try to celebrate any victory that they have at all. I want to thank you for listening to these and for agreeing to do this. I really look forward to hearing how it's going and following up with you, and I'm looking forward to doing it myself. I actually got a teenager that I'm mentoring too, so let's work together on this, make it good, and do it for the glory of God. And I do want to remind you, just in closing, that this is a good and important work that you're doing, and you're doing the work of God. When He said to go and make disciples and teach people to obey, this is exactly what you're doing. You're having them to listen to what God wants them to change, and then you're helping them, walking alongside them as they make the change that they feel they need to make. So you are doing the work. Very good. Thank you.